it was time for a change. As cliche as that sounds, I think that, obviously heat of the moment, you know, wouldn't have changed anything. But obviously leaving halfway through the year, that just didn't really see a reason to kind of keep pushing on. It felt like I was better off either not racing or trying to do something else. And, kind of fell into a pile of shit, came out smelling like roses, I feel like, with the 7BC, which obviously with Tyler getting hurt, Reitzel getting hurt, Brad Sweet getting hurt, and just a big, honestly, a terrible week for sprint car racing.
Green flag in the air.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Hot Lap with Landman. We are back again for another week, and we've got a super guest on this week. Giovanni Scelzi is going to join us here shortly, and it's going to be fun to hear some of the stuff that Gio's got to talk about, especially with his new ride this year and how that's going for him so far. Want to remind everybody, hey, Jerry Myers, the World of Outlaw official that was injured a couple weeks back at Kennedale, still out there recovering. He's doing a good job. The good news is they got him back home up towards the Springfield, Illinois area, and he's started some rehab and some stuff like that. So things are going good for Jerry. Want to ask everybody to keep him and his wife and family in your thoughts and prayers as he continues this recovery that's going to take quite a while. So the other thing, too, is don't forget about Billy and his family, too, as they continue to go through the difficult time of moving on after losing Billy so tragically. So just ask everybody to continue to think all about those people as we continue on in the racing world. Also going to ask you guys if you have a moment, like I say always, and I know it probably gets kind of repetitive, but if I can get you to follow me, get you to like, subscribe, and share my stuff. I just appreciate the heck out of it. Gives me an opportunity to get more content to you folks also, and it's just kind of the name of the game. So with that being said, as I always say, let's not wait around any longer. Let's get Gio in here and hear what Gio's up to today. All right, everybody. Well, we got the one and only hot sauce, Giovanni Scelzi, coming at you. And Gio, I know you guys are on a little bit of a break. Tell me about what you've been doing and where you've been parked at and what you've been up to here the last 8, 9, 10 days.
Yeah, so still live in Des Moines. The drive from Arizona to Texas was a long one, then Texas to canceling at Dodge City, then home. So kind of worked our way back home, which was nice to be able to come home to Iowa. But yeah, enjoying the very inconsistent weather. It was 80 one day, now it's 38 and trying to snow. So Midwest weather.
And one thing that I was thinking about here before we came on the air is, you're originally a West Coaster. You guys have pretty much great weather year round out there. You might get a little bit of rain here or there, and you've made the move out to the Midwest. And tell me about adapting to that a little bit. How much you miss the home versus where you're at now, and a little bit about the lifestyle you have in the central Iowa area.
Yeah, I mean, I don't miss much about home other than my family, obviously. Not being around Dominic and my nieces and my parents and stuff is hard, but I love living in Des Moines. I love living in Iowa. With a new team being based in Charlotte, it makes it hard not being able to go to the shop during the week. But who knows what could change in the future. But I do. I love my house. I love where I live. I really do enjoy living in Iowa.
Are you still traveling around in a motorhome? A couple of guys have kind of gotten rid of them over the last couple of years. Are you and Maddie still cruising around in the motorhome?
So never had a motorhome, just a dually and a t-shirt
Okay.
trailer is all I got right now. Which, I mean, I always use the saying, my hotel room's never leaked oil. So I'm very anti motorhome, just because even with a t-shirt trailer, the problems with generators and the last thing you want, I feel like, after a long night is coming into a motorhome with the generator not working or the AC not working or something stupid. But there's definitely a way to make it work. I just feel like I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah, no, that's I don't know, for some reason I guess I thought you had a motorhome, but I try to keep track of all you guys, and I got about 2% of it right half the time, it seems like. So, you started a new deal this year with Spire Motorsports and the Chili's ride. Talk a little bit about how that whole deal came together. I know last year you finished subbing in for Sunshine, and I know that was a great opportunity for you, but this whole deal is brand new from the pretty much from the tires all the way to the top of the trailer and everything that's inside it. How exactly did that deal come together for you?
Yeah, so Tim called me probably the day after Tyler got hurt. I think he got hurt Thursday, and he called me Friday, and I had kind of bruised my hand up as well. And he called and said, "Hey, are you interested in finishing the year out for Tyler?" And had a doctor's appointment the next day or the Monday after, and kind of said, "Hey, let me get my stuff together here. Give me a couple days to kind of sort this out." And then, like, yes, I'm very interested, but I need to make sure I'm healthy before I go racing again. And Tyler, obviously, they weren't sure the extent of his injury. Then they found out he broke his back and was going to have surgery and be out for really the rest of the year. Um, and next time I talked to Tim, I said, "Yep, let's go. My hand's okay. I'm going to take off Lernerville and start at 360 Nationals." And he had said, "Hey, Spire is considering starting a team of their own, and they really hadn't had a driver. All the you know elite guys were had rides or had long term deals or were in their own deals, and now that I was available, it would be good to kind of get me in the whole groove of things with the 7BC with the same cars and same motors, which is what they were planning on doing with the 77 car. And it wouldn't just be, hey, fill in for the year when you're done. Thanks. Have a nice life. Goodbye. It would be working towards something the next year. So that those talks kind of started. Then it's okay, who do we get to work on it? That's obviously the big question. Because Tyler did come back and that team all stayed together for the most part. And whenever Tim mentioned Eric Prutzman, I was kind of, a little bit blown away. I thought he was done being on the road. And I said, if you can get Eric, then you have the, keys to the castle. I feel like that would be a huge thing, especially getting a guy like that to start a race team from scratch. So I think they hired him probably September-ish, somewhere in there, put him on the payroll, which he lives in Charlotte, where Spire is based out of, and got him a building. And, talking to him back and forth, I'm sure it was kind of weird for a time going to a shop where there is nothing there. You're sitting at a laptop, essentially ordering everything. So probably around the PRI show, somewhere in there, when we announced everything, they moved a spot into him or for him in the Fab building. So cleared some NASCAR stuff out of the way. And I think at the time he had a toolbox and 4 frames sitting there. So I went down there after PRI and hung out and just drilled Nerf bars and kind of spent some time with him. And Cole, our car chief, was making runs to Pennsylvania to get stuff from DMI and wings from Wing Dynamics. So it's weird, man. I've never been a part of building a team from literally nothing. Normally when you get hired somewhere, they have everything essentially. What you might change cars or change wings or whatever, but they have the brunt of everything with toolboxes and stuff like that. So it was definitely a weird process. And the next time I went down there, it was you have the cars pretty much built. You're waiting on plumbing, and when plumbing shows up, you plumb the cars for a day. Then next day, okay, we're waiting on brakes, and next day you do brakes. So it was a drawn out process for sure, but they did a really good job to get ready for Vegas.
I want to talk just I want to talk just a little bit more about Eric Prutzman. And for people that probably know the name or might not even know the name or familiar with sprint car racing, is Eric Prutzman was Brad Sweet's crew chief for 4 years, 4 or 5 years there, when they did very well with the World of Outlaws, won 4 championships with him there and a high limit deal. Also, Eric comes with vast experience. He came up through the Tony Stewart ranks and worked with a lot of those guys over there before he went on his own. So Eric is a very accomplished crew chief that knows motors, knows shocks, and knows everything. Is that very important for a driver like you that knows, hey, listen, I have a guy that can work on these things, probably been through everything there is out there, and can maybe communicate with him and get this thing going?
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember who asked me, but um, it's kind of like, how do you know whether you're going to click or not with a crew chief? And you essentially don't until you start racing together. You can be homies off the racetrack, and sometimes the, conversations don't go how you think they would at the racetrack. But one thing I do believe is I feel like within the first couple races, good or bad, I feel like you're going to know if things are going to work out. In the conversations I've had with Eric, like I definitely feel like we're not where we need to be with me and the race car together. But the runs we've had, a couple podiums, I think, and in the hunt to win, and not having those bad nights and taking us, digging ourselves a real deep hole in the points. So yeah, to have a guy like that with the experience, I really feel like in all of the sprint car racing from my lifetime, I feel like when it was Ricky, Scuba, and Eric on Donnie's car, that was probably the best team, because I felt like either of those 3 guys could have been a crew chief at the time. And Scuba going on to be a crew chief, and Eric obviously going on to be a crew chief as well. That was a super team, I feel like, especially with Don driving. So I think that's a lot of kudos to Eric too for being a crew chief before that, and then going to be a tire guy essentially on Donnie's team, and realizing that, hey, I can work under Ricky and Scuba for a while and learn a lot, and really make the step when you're ready to be a crew chief, not think you're a crew chief when you're a tire guy, or when you're a car chief and you're not quite ready to make that step yet. I felt like Eric did it right and took the necessary steps to be a successful crew chief.
One thing that people might not be aware of is when the Outlaws make that West Coast swing, it used to be twice and now it's once for the very longest time there. And I'm assuming it's probably still that way is the Tony Stewart race car would spend their weeks at the Scelzi shop at your dad's place there. So you guys, you and Dominic got an opportunity to know Donnie and to know Scuba, Rick, all the guys that came through there. Do you think that was kind of an advantage for you, just getting the lie of the land of how life is really away from the racetrack? Knowing that it's might potentially become a career for you.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, my earliest memories were getting out of school and wanting to go to the shop and have my mom take me to the shop and just, I think 1 or 2 years Tony's car was there with I remember it was the Old Spice car or the Office Depot or Office Max car was there with Donnie's car. And just to see the cars there was really cool. I know they had Goodyear tires on, so whatever when that was 2010, I think somewhere in there. So I was 9 or 10 years old. And then I was racing micro sprints and stuff. And then kind of started working on my own micro sprints there in 2014, 15, and really wanted those guys to go to the races and watch me race. And I obviously knew nothing about that. I would ask them stupid questions about my micro, and they, you know, were worried about racing for a championship and not worried about a 12-year-old kid asking him dumb questions. But um, no, it turned into a really just a cool thing to see. And then kind of when you get older, it's like, wow, I can actually learn something from just hanging out with those guys. And Donnie would normally stay for a week or two in there sometime when they'd have a midweek show or something. But no doubt it was an advantage. I think once I started to realize it, and just being around those guys and how they do maintenance and um, obviously scuba being scuba and having fun with those guys, going to dinner with them, and it was very at the time you probably not realize it, but it was a huge advantage now for sure.
You mentioned a little bit about the micro sprints, and what I usually do with all my guests is, and a lot of them, and you're one of them in this case, the answer is very obvious. But what got your eye right away that you wanted to race something, even as a young kid or something that's like, hey, this is something I want to do also.
So I actually didn't want to race. My parents and my dad especially were was fortunate to not have them push me into racing. Obviously, you're a son of a drag racer. That's just what you're going to do. But when I was, my parents wanted me to play baseball and football and all the other stuff. And when I was probably, you know, 8, 9 years old, maybe a little younger than that, it kind of came down to, okay, do you want to play baseball on the weekends or do you want to go racing? And I felt like my, decision was always, let's not go play baseball. I'd rather go to the racetrack. And my first time in a junior sprint, I was all excited, had the new suit, new helmet, all this stuff, and um, went and was going to do hot laps or qualifying, and was like, don't want to do it. I don't want to go racing. And I don't remember if there was qualifying or not, but I think it was a pill draw format for a junior sprint. Went out for the heat race. My dad's like, hey, just go out there. If you like it, we can race. Finish the night out. If you don't, we don't have to race. So I think I won my heat race. And I was like, man, I kind of want to race the feature now. And um, it wasn't really much of a choice between anything else. It was just kind of, hey, I'm racing. I'm doing well at this. This is fun. I really enjoy doing this, and let's go racing. So I know my brother has a story of seeing Wing 410 sprint cars at Sedalia, I believe, standing up on the platform they had in the infield and watching the cars go by at 130, 140, and it was like, man, this is what I want to do. Um, but having Dominic there and having him always have the next step in the race car in the shop as well, I always kind of had an idea of what was next. When it was I was in junior sprints, he was in micros, and I was in micros, he was in sprint cars. Like I kind of saw the next step, and it was easy for me just to put my seat in it and make that step into the sprint car. So having him around and learning from working on his cars and kind of always being a step ahead, I feel like whether it's like I said, micros or sprint cars, it really helped me for sure.
Did you actually miss the opportunity to play baseball then, or do you feel like you kind of helped make the decision yourself too?
No, there was no decision. I mean, I think I was just playing baseball because every 10-year-old kid, your parents enroll you in whatever, and you go do it for fun. And you kind of figure out what you like more. But I was definitely never forced to race or to do anything really. I was very fortunate, like I said, where my parents were, hey, we can park the race car for a while and go race or vice versa. So had an awesome childhood and got to travel very early with Tulsa Shootout. That was always a huge race in our schedule. So had an awesome childhood for sure.
I know that like Kyle Busch right now has Brexton running around in the micros, he started him in the cage carts and up to the micros and the midgets now, just because he's an oval track guy. The question I've always wondered is your dad's a Hall of Fame NHRA drag racer. Gary Scelzi, for anybody that wouldn't know that, I'm just going to make sure everybody knows.
Yep.
Um, What was it that prevented you from going straight line and started turning circles and never looking back?
Probably the big thing was Danny Lasowski, I feel like. He's good friends with my dad from before we were born. And, obviously in dirt racing, there's go-karts and outlaw karts and micro sprints, all kinds of stuff you can race. And for drag racing, there's really nothing you can drag race under the age of 16 that, they have junior dragsters and stuff, but no real car you can race under 16. So like all these stories of these drag racers that are professional drag racers started racing at 18, 19, 20. My dad started racing at late teens, early 20s of not even like a real race car. It was a sand drag. It was a real race car, but nothing professionally. And I think Austin Prock is a good example of that. He went the dirt racing route, and the top fuel, especially driver pool and team pool, is so much different than sprint cars. There's 12 to 13, maybe less top fuel dragsters and 12 to 13 good funny cars in the whole world. That's all there is. And, half of them are owned by the driver or the driver finds sponsorship to go race them. So the higher driver pool of top fuel racing is essentially non-existent for the most part. So there is really no path between, there's probably amazing drivers in super comp and pro mod and all kinds of lower ranks of drag racing that will never get a chance to race a top fuel car. Not because they're not good, because there are no chances or they don't have enough money to go racing. So, every motorsport is turning that way a little bit, I feel like, but with sprint cars, and into micros and all that stuff, they're midgets, whatever. There's so many more opportunities to kind of prove your worth in a local level or a regional level than go racing full time.
Did you ever find yourself torn knowing your dad was going racing? And I don't know how old, if he was done racing by the time you started your racing career. I should probably ask that first. Were there ever times where you guys had to go different directions?
Yeah, so he retired in '08. I was 7 years old. And luckily we had Monty Content and Monty Facino, two of my dad's some of his best friends. And Monty Content still works for my dad. To take care of our race cars. And essentially Monty Content took care of most of our stuff. I was in a junior sprint at the time and Dominic was in a restricted and super 600. So my dad was there during the week. He would leave on Thursdays, come home on Mondays. So excuse me. But by the time he went to work and worked on race cars in the evening, and I don't remember it fully. I remember waiting Monday for him to get home, and then being so upset when he had to leave Thursday. And my mom would video every race and send the videos to him and stuff. So he was involved as he possibly could be. But at the same time, when you're 6, 7, 8 years old, you don't realize that that's what your dad does for a job. So I know as much as he wanted to be around our racing, he had a job to do and try to win world championships as well. So yeah, I always kind of say I wish I was older when he was racing, just so I could have, you know, understood the race cars more. And there's pictures of me riding on the mini bike with him and stuff. But being essentially since I was born to 7 years old, there's not really much I remember. What's funny is there's so many crew chiefs that worked when my dad was there. They're still in drag racing, whether it's Mike Neff or Danny Hood, all those guys, Jimmy Prock, especially that Alan Johnson, guys that have been doing it for 35, 40 years that are still involved and remember me, don't probably remember what I look like when I say, hey, I'm GLSLZ. They recognize me and say, hey, I remember when you were this tall, so I love going back to drag races to watch Austin and I don't really think, like I said, I don't remember it fully. Whenever he retired, he went pretty hardcore into going to our races.
Tell me a little bit about you and Dominic growing up on the younger side of things. Did you guys get along good? Did Dominic take you under his wing and kind of point you in the right direction, being he had experience with the stuff you were coming up through?
Yeah, I think so. So we're 4.5 years apart, which I feel like that age gap is, I'm just getting into, high school when he's graduating high school. We're far enough apart. We're really not competing. It was more of a mentor, or kind of a father-son relationship in a way. So, his friends are always way older than mine. And I always kind of gravitated towards hanging out with older people because of that. I feel like, and, essentially all of the friends I have are from the racetrack. So, a lot of the guys that we race with, like the Facinos, the Keys, all those guys from California, we still keep in touch with. So, it definitely we did get along, we get along phenomenally now. I think, when I was probably 10, 11 years old, I think I kind of realized that Dominic was, my number one fan. He wanted to see me succeed more than anybody. So we talk every single day, most time multiple times a day, and I think he's more excited when I win sometimes than I am.
I would agree with that 100%. And that's just something I was going to say is Dominic, I've heard him say it numerous times. And when you know Dominic, you know that there's a really always an awesome, fun side of Dominic. He doesn't have a bad day in his life, it seems like.
Right.
But when Dominic says things and repeats them, and you can tell by the tone of his voice, he has always claimed that you're the better racer of the two. Tell me, how does that resonate with you?
I don't know. I mean, it's always like that with a younger sibling. I feel like a lot, especially in racing, because you know when they bought their first micro sprint. I was 2 or 3 years behind that, and it took them that long to figure out what they were doing, what engines they needed. And when I stepped in the car, it was already a winning package. Same with the sprint car. When my dad bought their first car, they bought all of a used program out, weeded through kind of the junk. And then once they had good stuff, Dominic would be moving on. I'd be racing a good 360. So the learning curve was non-existent with the equipment when I got in the car, and you know being able to drive for Dennis Roth really quick in 2017, I believe it was, because you're already in winning equipment. I feel like if I can be the weakest link, I guess you could say, and not have to blame equipment or engines or part failures, I feel like it makes it easier as a driver learning as fast as possible for sure.
And then it also makes well, you can't point the little finger at the car anymore either, do
Right.
you? It's like
Exactly.
I gotta put up or shut up here.
Yep.
So
No doubt.
yeah. So as your career moved along, you got into those 360s. And then for a while, it looked to me like did you actually drive the 57 car that Silva had there for a while,
I
way back
did.
in your younger day?
Yeah. So in 2018, put a deal together with Richard Marshall actually and Paul Silva. Um, I was finally old enough to race World of Outlaws, and I think we put a 15-20 race schedule together. And at the time, I was talking to Bernie as well. Actually, before all that, I had a plan with Dennis Roth to race 50 or 60 shows across the Midwest, because I came from the year before racing just NARC for them, and was old enough to go racing, in the Midwest and stuff. And they decided to go with Corey Lyson as his driver, and that really crushed me. Me and Corey are good buddies, but just kind of out of nowhere, it was like, hey, maybe you can run some NARC shows. We're gonna have Corey run the full time team, and obviously Corey, older than me, seasoned. I mean, it wasn't much of a choice. I don't feel like picking him over me, but at the time, it was like, wow, I have to go kind of find something to drive or drive my dad's car, and um, met with Bernie at the PRI show very, very briefly. It was kind of a, hey, do you want to drive my car next year? Yep. Okay, sounds good. And he walked off, and that was it. So um, had that kind of going. And like I said, had a 15-20 race schedule together with Paul Silva. Went to Vegas for the Outlaws, went to Larry with the Outlaws. We're not very good, either of them. And then raced a local show at Watsonville, and kind of just, made the mutual decision. Hey, let's stop, wasting Richard Marshall's money here. You know, it just wasn't going to work. Me being that young, him, being a seasoned guy that wants winning guys in his car, it just wasn't going to work. So, kind of broke that off and moved on. Then went to go race Bernie's car at Mansfield for that sprint car championship race they had in May, I think it was, somewhere in there, and ended up racing Bernie's car for, I don't even know, 40 shows the first year, somewhere in there, and then ran Bernie's car again in 2019.
Yeah, and it looks to me like you even drove a couple 360 races for Bernie then too. And it's funny, as I was reading up on you, I didn't realize how important of a role Bernie and Betsy both, because they come as a team package, definitely. Well, they had a lot of influence on your career at a younger age, and got you some probably some very important experience that's tough to come by these days.
Yeah, I mean, I owe a lot to Bernie. You know, as casual as Bernie is, he's the opposite of me. I feel like when I called him again, and we spoke a couple times after I left the 57 car. And he's like, "Hey, I got a car ready to go. We'll go race Mansfield. I have a brand new trailer, brand new truck, brand new car. Everything's ready to go." All right, cool. So, I think the races were. It was a practice day Thursday. We raced Friday and Saturday, somewhere in there. So I get there like a Monday, get to a shop. Essentially, car's a bare frame. There's a motor plate, a steering gear, no rear end, no front end, and I'm just rolling in. I'm 16 years old, and I can work on my own race car and stuff. But it's like, man, I don't know where anything is. I'm staying at his house, and he's working the front desk at Indy Raceway. So I was like, hey, you go ahead and finish this thing up, get your seat mounted. Okay, great. So I start working on it. I remember Slide Job Bob was going to help us over the weekend. He was just working across the road at DRC, and we building the car and getting the stuff ready, taking stuff from Indy race parts, put on the race car, blah blah blah, get the motor in it, fire it, all good. And we're supposed to practice on Thursday, which we obviously want to go practice. And it probably Mansfield was 3.5 hours away from Indy. So at probably 11 in the morning, we're kind of fiddling around, load a new trailer. Bernie walks out and says, "All right, whatever you think we need for the weekend, put it in a cardboard box, put it in the trailer because we need to leave so we can make it to hot laps." So we make it. They're already getting engine heat. And this is the first time I've raced with the guy, so we're bullshitting on the way to the racetrack and missed the first hot lap session, I believe. Go out there, and I think we ran fourth or fifth in our prelim, running third on Saturday, and end up breaking a bird cage. So we were really fast off the bat, which was refreshing. Kind of going with Paul and not being super fast, really having a lot of pressure. I felt like the pressure was kind of off with Bernie because he's just trying to get the car on the racetrack. Other more so than say, hey, you're making these mistakes. So we were really close friends essentially from the very beginning. So still talk to him a lot, and anytime I'm in Indy, I always hang out with him. But him and Betsy definitely had a very big role in my early career.
Yeah, and then that was 2018. That sounds like you did that, and you ran a bunch of races also.
Yep.
2019, is that the year that you started in the Beef Packers '83 Junior car?
So I ran the '83 Junior in 2017 on the NARC schedule. I was 15 years old. Ran Bernie's car in 18, Bernie's car in 19. And there were a couple shows there where Dominic was actually racing the '83 car on the NARC schedule in 2019. So when he would fly back to California to race NARC, I would run my dad's car because all the stuff was sitting out in the Midwest still for Dom to kind of fly back and forth. So Bernie and Brandon Hickman and Lucas
Okay.
Bowen, they would work on the 41 car, which essentially was a sister car of the 71 car at the time.
I saw that there were some races there, and looked like I looked at the results once, and it actually had you in the 41 car and Dominic in a Beef Packers car. So I
Yep.
was confused about maybe how that worked. It looked like
Yeah.
2019 early in the year was a lot of moving parts to get to different races. But
Yes. No doubt.
then again, mid-April you end up back with Bernie again, and
Yep.
and have a lot of success there. And I think is that the year you got your first Outlaw win?
Yeah, so I won the National Open prelim in 18 in November, I believe, and then won what used to be the May Outlaw show at Charlotte in 2019.
Yeah. So, and back then, I believe you might still be. Are you the youngest World of Outlaw feature winner yet to this day? Or
Yeah. So I think I beat Kevin Swindell by 3 or 4 months, somewhere in there. So that was definitely cool, especially to do it at the Grove was even cooler.
yeah. And how many laps had you turned at the Grove before that?
So we went and ran an ASCS national show there. My God, probably like July of that year. And we were gonna go to the summer nationals. I think we ended up going to Knoxville instead, and just never worked out. We could go to a outlaw show or a 410 show at the Grove, and then so we had run one 360 show before that, essentially before we ran the outlaw show.
Did you surprise yourself that night?
Yeah, I mean it was weird. Like everyone tells you how difficult the Grove is, how niche the Grove is, and it definitely is. There's no doubt. But for whatever reason, we had a brand new engine in from my dad actually, and um, just the package and hot laps, it was very easy to get around the racetrack. I'll kind of best way I can put it. Like it rolled right around there wide open in it. It rained a bunch. So it was narrow and it was fast. I think we qualified at a 16.2 or a 16.3, which track record time I think it was like a 16.1. So I'm thinking like this is why does everyone say this place is so hard? This is a cakewalk. Like this thing rolls right around the racetrack, and I think we qualified on the front row of a heat race, made it to the dash. I think I finished second in the dash, and then passed gravel there halfway through to win the feature, and which was a 27 lap feature for Greg Hodnett. That was pretty cool because he had passed away earlier that year, but yeah, had a shot. I think I started third or fifth at the National Open the next night and got caught up in almost a crash there on the backstretch, and fell back and ran 12th or 13th or something. But yeah, it was a weird experience because, like I said, everyone says how difficult this place is, and it's going to take you years and years to figure it out. And the first time we unloaded there, it was like, dude, this is a piece of cake. And I haven't won there since, so maybe that's saying something.
I was going to say the posse people are probably going, "Hey, check your record since."
Right,
Huh?
exactly. I was one for one start, and I haven't won since.
Yeah. But, it's got to be a little bit of a confidence booster going into a place like that saying, hey, I have won here before. Obviously, I do know my way around here. And with it being a little narrow, that might change things up, but it's still the same racetrack.
Yeah, and in the 2 years or 3 years after in 2021, ran second in the Morgan Cup when Bernie actually worked on the 18 car, kind of getting the band back together there and racing in a couple years later. So have had good runs there, run on the podium with a couple all-star races. Just never been able to get qualified good enough to, I feel like I'm always second row of a heat race where you're trying to, you know, kill yourself to get into the dash, and which is the story with a lot of guys there. When you go there National Open, there's 50, 60 cars. So especially now being on the high limit schedule, you only go there once a year. So you don't get to get practice rounds like the Outlaws do.
Tell me about your relationship with the guys out in the Pennsylvania area. You know, you've got the Danny Dietrichs, all the characters out there, Lance Deweese, just all the real reputable historic drivers that have such just a great reputation. How is it when you go out there? Do they make you feel welcome?
Man, honestly, might be a bad answer, but there's one car I'm worried about in the pit area, and that's right now the 77 car. It kind of sucks because I feel like, Trey Stark's not on the road anymore. Eliason's not really on the road anymore. My brother's not on the road anymore. So, which I feel like is a good and a bad thing. I do have friends. Tyler Courtney lives here in Iowa with me. So, I'm not super social at the racetrack. I don't leave my trailer a whole lot. Kind of focus on the task at hand, but any region you go to, there are those local guys. I feel like California and Pennsylvania probably have the strongest pool of local guys that we race against. Trey, obviously in Washington's really good, so he's kind of an outlier up there. But yeah, I just don't go out with him. Don't hang out with him a whole lot. I'm kind of worried
Yeah.
about my own task at hand for sure.
Yeah, I was just talking about the racetrack, but I do know that exactly what you said to be true, that you don't wander far from your own trailer, just from seeing you at the racetrack over the last 6, 7 years myself. But the one thing I was going to say is the competition is tough on each end of the country, but you go to California and it's nothing but little tiny bull rings, and you go out east and it's nothing but super fast half miles.
Right. It definitely is that way. And it's like anything, right? You go to a Knoxville show and the Austin McCarls and those local guys, when you race there every single weekend, which that's what's so tough. I feel like, you know, if you race at Tulare and Placerville and Chico every weekend, you have that package for those racetracks. But normally, when the touring series come to town, the tracks are nothing like what they are at normal shows. Now Tulare has gotten their racetrack really figured out. They do a really good job. It was great for the NARC show. They had it rubbered up the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 laps, which is really good for Tulare because that means it was good the first 25. So I don't know. I feel like sometimes racing the same track every weekend can make you beat your head against the wall or get really locked into kind of a setup box. And there's a reason that the touring guys win the majority of the races, the big races.
Yeah. 2020, I see that you tried some pro late models on Asphalt February 7th through 9th. I didn't write down where it was, but that was also the year of COVID. And I don't know if
Yep.
that had anything to do with you making that decision, but heck, you even won the last night out in that pro late model. Tell me just a little bit about that episode.
Yeah. So funny story. We ran. I think it was called like the speed. There was a name for it. I don't remember what that whole pro late model thing was called, but we ran like it was 3 or 4 nights in a row we'd raced to that point, and it started with like there was 12 cars in the class, then there was like six, then there was like four, and I was not fast by any means. And if I remember right, there was 3 cars that finished. I ran third, second dumped first, and they all got disqualified. So I was the only car to finish the race. So I'm standing in victory lane, like we need to just go to the trailer because we were not going to win this race regardless, and we won it by default. I didn't even want to take pictures; it was so embarrassing. And everyone on the crew, they're all excited. I'm like, "What are we excited about? Like we sucked. We won this race because second dumped first, and then second got disqualified." So didn't have the best stint in pavement stuff, but I'm trying to think at the beginning of 2020 or at the end of 19, I'd raced some USAC stuff for Chad Boat with Toyota. Got involved with Andy Graves and TRD in the development program and put an ARCA West deal together for 2020 with Bill McAnally. Napa was on board as well. And that was kind of the thing. Hey, get your feet wet here on pavement because you were going to race New Smyrna with an ARCA East car. Um, Raced that for the year, and obviously COVID hit. So that we were going to race the same with the real NASCAR stuff that I would never see a track before, and we would go. You wouldn't even qualify, or you'd have a 10-minute qualifying session, then you go race. So, not trying to make excuses, but I felt like pavement racing is so much testing and so much practice. I felt like I was, a lot of that was taken away from me early in the year. And when we would go test at Madera where we didn't race. We would test at Irwindale, where we'd race 1 or 2 times a year. So the whole year, I mean, to everybody is not only just me, but just was a weird year. And during that time, Ian Madsen left the 18 car, and they kind of approached me about racing, finishing the year out in the 18, which that's when the schedules had kind of started picked up again, and there were a bunch of races scheduled. So just told them, hey, I'm gonna, I have to run this ARCA deal. I have these races under contract, but I'll fill in as much as I can with the 18 car, and that's kind of how that whole thing started. And at the end of 2020. kind of figured out, hey, I'm just going to go sprint car race and not worry too much about the stock car stuff anymore because there was really no path. I mean, I was 18 years old, which essentially is old for the ARCA series now. There's kids 15, 16-year-old
Yeah.
racing. I was already so far behind, and Toyota understood the whole thing, and they actually gave us Toyotas for the following year to race with the 410 too. So that was cool to kind of extend that partnership to the next year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I just want to jump back real quick on that same year, 2020. I saw that you made a start in Knoxville in June in the 5X car. And I
Yep.
want to just confirm that I think I always remember it all, but I don't. Did you happen to get to race for Guy Forbrook that year a little bit too?
I did. Yes. So at the beginning of 2020, for COVID, I believe it was the end of 19, beginning of 2020, somewhere in there, I talked to Guy, and Guy said, "Hey, I want to go racing again." He had just left the big game card that year or the year before. I said, "I have all my own stuff now. I got engines, I got parts, I got it all. I want to go race 30 or 40 times." It was kind of a thing where, hey, I'm going to go race 30 times ish in pavement. We'll go race 30 times sprint car race, and that'll fill my whole schedule because Guy doesn't want to race 100 times a year. So kind of got things rolling, and then COVID hit in March, and races got pushed back, and I ran my dad's car for a little bit, and just felt like we couldn't ever find the right weekend. Like, they scheduled a race at Jackson, that non-sanctioned show during COVID. I couldn't go to it because I was racing the ARCA car, so that would have been a great one. Guy actually raced with Shane Stewart, so those couple of chances where we had to race to figure it out and get better with each other, I would have another commitment because they adjusted our ARCA schedule as well. So it just didn't work. I think, you know, Guy wanted to race once or twice a weekend, and I had a big chunk of my schedule to fill up, not racing the ARCA stuff. So when the 18 car called, it just, you know, do I want to race 50 times the rest of the year, or, race 10 to 15? What makes more sense? And the 18 car made more sense at the time.
Just to clarify, you backed out of it. You stepped back from the ARCA deal then too, just to make sure that all your weekends were free for the 18 for the end of the year then?
So I had a contract signed at the beginning of 2020, agreeing to X amount of races. I think it was 20 ARCA races at the time, and 3 or 4 other ARCA East, ARCA West shows. So when I got hired by them, I told them, hey, these dates I cannot race. So we took 3 or 4 weekends off,
Okay.
and just essentially said, let's work around this schedule. Let's race every single chance we get between these ARCA shows to finish the year out.
All right, perfect. The reason I asked about Guy Forbrook is a lot of our listeners probably don't know the deep dive and the backside of your better half, Giovanni. And Maddie is Guy's daughter, similarly your age, pretty close, just a little bit younger. Is that when you had the opportunity to meet your girlfriend?
It is. So, trying to think, I went there in early 2020-ish to mount my seat and stuff, and she picked me up from the airport, met her, and yeah, kind of one thing led to another, and left that deal on the best terms I possibly could. It was obviously, I felt like at one point it's like, are we just getting going? Because it was before nationals time, and I think we ran the Outlaw show in June at Knoxville, which was 2 nights, and then that late June show where I actually ran an ARCA car during the day and the sprint car at night in the same day, which damn near killed me because it was hot and humid and brutal. So luckily Knoxville waited a little bit to get me to the racetrack from Newton. But yeah, I got to meet her, and obviously worked out to what it is today.
That's awesome. It's just something I wanted to kind of make sure that I had it all those
Yeah.
strings tied together too.
Yep.
So you get the opportunity to join the 18 car, and I want to say for the first couple years, you guys didn't have an actual committed schedule with the World of Outlaws, kind of a outlaw type schedule, hit and miss. Um, First of all, can you confirm that for me?
Yeah. Yep. So 2021 was our first full time year. Ran wherever we wanted, Knoxville, local outlaw shows. I don't think we went to California in the spring in 2021. We did in 22. Same thing in 22. Ran wherever we wanted. Houston's local, Knoxville local, a couple PA local shows. Ran Tusky 50 when it was an all star show still, and then at the end of 22 is kind of like, okay, we're racing 90 times a year, and we're collecting no point money. We're collecting no tow money. This doesn't really make sense to not go chase a series. And then 23, we went in Outlaws full time.
Yeah, which at that time was the only option, that or the All Stars. I
Yes,
guess you could have said that
correct.
too.
Yep.
Um, and I just wanted to compare that those 2 years where it was hit and miss, hitting 90 shows compared to a organized schedule. Compare the two, and was it kind of fun flying by the seat of your pants? I assume you guys had some sort of semblance of a schedule, but compare that to a regular touring series schedule.
Honestly, the True Outlaw schedule sounds awesome on paper, but When you get to this weekend's a perfect example. You get to a Thursday and you have an option to go race 2 nights with the Outlaws in Peevely or go to Pennsylvania for 3 nights. Most of the time, whatever you choose, it's going to rain. I can't tell you how many times those 2 years we would, you know, I think we raced at Jacksonville, Hobstyle with the Outlaws. We ran Jacksonville, and home was obviously Iowa. So we raced Jacksonville Friday. It was a 100% chance to rain at Hobstadt. No chance we're going to race. We book it to Knoxville to go race a local show. Knoxville rains out. Hobstadt races. So, you know, those weekends where you got two hotel rooms booked in two different spots and you got to leave by this time to go race and you're driving through rain to get there. Like, the good thing about the outlaw schedule or a committed schedule is, hey, we're going to Peely this weekend regardless of the weather. If it rains out both nights, that's where we're going. And that came to a point where we're driving more, we're getting less for it, we're not getting pit pass, we're not getting point money, we're not getting tow money. And there's different budgets with different teams, right? It makes sense for some teams that will take a weekend off, but when you're a full-time team, you don't take a weekend off. And those true outlaw schedules end up being more races than an outlaw or a high limit schedule, I feel like. So yeah, I'm a proponent of following a series, which a high limit's only 60, 58, 60 races. So you essentially are kind of a true outlaw schedule outside of your schedule. So like this weekend's one of the weekends that sucks. Peevely's 5 hours from my house, but the weather looks like crap. Pennsylvania's 15 hours, but it's sunny. So you kind
Yeah.
of kind of pick your poison.
So you guys, just real quick, I guess you're heading to Pennsylvania this week.
Yep. Yeah, we're gonna race Port Saturday, Baps on Sunday.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, you get comfortable in the 18 car too, and you get to spend some time there, and then you guys hit the World of Outlaw tour, and I want to say, was it 2023, your
Yep.
first full year with the World of Outlaws, and
Yep.
chasing Rookie of the Year. Remind me a little bit about that year. Did you get the Rookie of the Year deal that year?
Yeah, so one rookie of the year finished fourth in points, actually, which was tied for the highest, which Buddy, I think, finished fourth the following year, which he tied it again. But yeah, it was a solid year. We got off to a slow start. I think we took a provisional like the first 2 nights at Volusia or something stupid, or barely made the show. Yeah, it was a fun year. And it's not that much of a step. When you're already racing 90 times a year, running the full time Outlaws is not much different travel wise. And you kind of get in that groove of you're going to the same regions every couple weeks, in the same layout, I guess, throughout the year. You're going to Fargo, Grand Forks, that whole thing after nationals, and how their whole schedule works has been the same for 15, 20 years. So it was fun, obviously, and 23 was a cool first year to win Rookie of the Year and have a solid year.
And two wins that year. Also, I have Lakeside and Beaver Dam. And
Yep.
one thing I noticed is Beaver Dam kind of sticks out to me on your accomplishments, and that we're going to talk about here just real quick because you've won numerous races at Beaver Dam.
Yeah, yeah. I think I've won twice at Beaver Dam. I don't think I've won multiple Outlaw shows anywhere else. I don't Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I think that's the only one I've won two at, I believe. I think.
Yep,
Might be wrong, but I think
23
that's
and
it.
24. Yeah, you
Yep.
got two wins in. And then in 24, you won at the Cotton Bowl, River Cities and Grand Forks,
Yep.
Beaver Dam, Eldora, the wrong night at Eldora, the first night.
Correct. Yeah, it paid about 1/10 as much as the next night did.
Yeah, and I would say for those that might not know, is the first night is a prelim. It pays a regular standard person. The second
Yep.
night and the fourth night pay the big money. Sorry,
Yep.
I didn't mean to throw salt in the wound there.
It's all
But
right.
I was looking to see which night was it. Yeah, it was the first night.
Yep.
And then the Knoxville prelim that year, also in 2024. And I believe that's the year, I think you started on the pole or the front row of the A main on Saturday night. And Big Brother Dominic bought an emergency plane ticket to the central Iowa region. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I can't remember. I started on the pole to nationals in 2021. And then I won the prelim in 24, and I think I started third or fifth or seventh, somewhere in there, and ran second on Saturday. So two
Okay.
good years for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Tell me about, you live in the Des Moines area, let's put it that way. Obviously, Knoxville Raceway's got to be the secondary home track for you anymore. Talk about the relationship you have with the track at Knoxville.
I can't express how much I love Knoxville. The people from the Hall of Fame to the back gate people to John McCoy to just have a lot of respect for them. Jim Udemark, like the you know being an Iowa based team with the 18 car, what I used to be in, helped for sure because a lot of the businesses they have suites and they go to the races. You bring them business as much as they present a good racetrack. So. But during that time, built relationships with those people that I still have today, whether it's campground people or whoever works at the racetrack, and become friends with them and love going to Knoxville. Love the weeks at nationals. I love being able to go home during nationals. That's awesome. Knoxville's 45 minutes from my doorstep. So getting me away from Dingus a few nights is probably a good thing. Actually going to bed at a reasonable time and having to drive home and have that responsibility during that week is definitely helpful for sure.
Is there a scheduled off night for you at the Nationals where maybe you may let the hair down just a little bit?
Well, it worked out in 2024 because I won Wednesday. So Wednesday is definitely my preferred day because I feel like if you lock in Wednesday, you get 2 days off. That's kind of what I always liked, and been lucky enough to not have to go on Friday, which knock on wood, hopefully doesn't happen ever in my lifetime. But normally Wednesday night's the night I feel like to kind of hang out and stay. My girlfriend gets a camper at the racetrack, so I have a place to crash there, and I have to drive home drunk. Which anyone knows in that town, if anyone's spent any time there, do not drive drunk because there's cops everywhere.
And they're going to get
um,
you. Yeah.
they're gonna get you at some point, yes. But normally Wednesday night's probably the big night for me, and maybe
Yeah.
Saturday, depending how it goes.
Last year, 2025, you start with the KCP 18 car, and things are cruising along. And the Eldora deal, night one again, we could actually even say here, you won it a couple years ago, and then you get into an accident. And I know it doesn't matter; it's up to you to share how much you want with on that. But that ends up being your last ride ever in the 18 car. And tell us what you would like about what went down there and the decision to move on.
Yeah, so really the decision had nothing to do with the crash. Things had kind of been building a little bit, and I want to stress 5 years with the team is a long time. You look at Donnie's tenure with TSR was I don't even know 20 years, 18 years somewhere in there.
18 years, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean it's a long time, and I felt like I grew a lot with that race team and moving to Des Moines where all those guys are based out of, and building friendship with those people and still being friends with them today. I just it was time for a change. As cliche as that sounds, I think that obviously heat of the moment. You know, wouldn't have changed anything. But obviously leaving halfway through the year that just didn't really see a reason to kind of keep pushing on. Felt like I was better off either not racing or trying to do something else. And, kind of fell into a pile of shit, came out smelling like roses, I feel like, with the 7BC, which obviously with Tyler getting hurt, Reitzel getting hurt, Brad Sweet getting hurt, and just a big, honestly, a terrible week for sprint car racing with track conditions and guys crashing and guys in really good spots and points crashing as well. Went from driving home to Tim Clausen calling and everything happened really, really quick. And quitting with zero backup plan and having all your income come from driving race cars probably wasn't the best choice at the time, but wasn't really worried about, finding my next meal and not worried about paying the bills at that point. Just worried about kind of getting myself straight and kind of, finding what worked out for me in the future.
You said that the phone calls came quick. You said Tim Clausen, which we obviously discussed earlier in the show here a little bit. Did you ever hear anything from the Reitzel camp or from the Sweet camp, knowing that they needed drivers and they might not have known what you had going on at the immediate right after that termination deal?
Yeah. So I got a text from Brian Ridge, I think it was. There was a 515 number that texted me super late at night. I think it was the night after Reitzel got hurt or night before or night of Reitzel, and got a phone call and I wasn't sleeping and or declined it or whatever. And it kind of had already halfway handshake agreemented my way into the 7BC car and didn't really want to start a new deal off of a waffling around going back and forth between two cars and have known Tim for a long time and really liked Tyler. Didn't know Jake Argo very well yet. And I know I made the right decision driving that car and turning it into what it's kind of turned into today with the Spire Motorsports team and stuff. And have become very close friends with Tyler now and Jake and Ron, the two crew guys on their car. So definitely wouldn't have changed much about the decision I made.
You probably also kind of got a little bit of a travel buddy. I've talked about this in the past, and you just see certain teams that seem to park beside each other everywhere they go, try to travel a little bit together as much as they go. And I would say for you guys, that might be the 7BC car.
Yeah, no doubt. And being really the only two teams other than the 17 car on Penske's, with kind of some Penske factory support as well, being on the same engines, the same chassis, same wings. So different programs, obviously, but those parts, it does help when you have someone like that. When you go to a Vado where you're at 8,000 feet trying to get your motor fuel right. And us being a new team, especially with obviously Eric knows what he's doing, but I think sometimes just even him bouncing ideas off of Jake having raced with me the last 6 months or 5 months of the season definitely helps.
That gets us to where we're at today. And I noticed I was kind of wanting to throw this in together. I never did find out, how did you get the name Hot Sauce? We got to find that out.
So I need to make up some story behind it, but my dad had all kinds of stupid nicknames for me, like Hot Sauce was one, Geostorm was another one, like just things that made no sense that had no reason behind them. If anyone knows my dad, you'll understand that. But yeah, when I was probably 8 or 10 years old, he started calling me Hot Sauce, and they put it on the belt of one of my suits. And then I was, 13, 14, said, "This is stupid. Why am I doing this?" So I put Scelzi back on it. And then probably 2018, 19, somewhere in there, Dominic had tweeted it, say, "Hey, Geo Hot Sauce won" or something. And then Johnny Gibson saw it, and then it was game over from there. I had to live with it. Couldn't get rid of it then.
The guy with the nickname Hot Sauce is sponsored by Chili's.
It's a very good duo, that's for sure. I actually, Bernie brand was a hot sauce brand based out of Texas that sponsored us for a while with the 18 car. And they came to, kind of one of those deals where you hear those stories about sponsorships coming about. They came up to the car at Cotton Bowl, I think the night I won in 2024, and said, "Hey, your hot sauce." Actually, when I won at Beaver Dam, I had a hot sauce bottle in my hand up on the car, which I was going to take the lid off and squirt it everywhere, but that would have been a disaster to clean off of the people around me. And the car. So, but yeah, hot sauce and chilies is definitely a pretty good match.
You've got to, and we've kind of jumped around a little bit here, but I wanted to cover how you got to where you are today. You guys have, I think, 10 or 11 races under your belt now. Give me a grade, a self-assessment grade of you and your team, basically 10 or 11 races into like I said, not even another Bolt owned last August, September, to a brand new team. You guys hit the ground running with some of the toughest drivers are out there in the country, and it's time to go perform.
I would say race team preparation wise, A plus. We're not where we need to be yet with organization, but to be able to get to Talladega, get to Vegas. Our plan initially was race Volusia, but Eric definitely made the right call of, hey, how about we just not start the year off behind and actually be prepared to go racing? So to get everything together essentially from September to March was unbelievable for me. I mean, like I said, when I was there in November, we were putting tools on the ground because there was no benches in the shop yet. So and obviously the NASCAR guys are worried about making their NASCARs go fast, not a new sprint car team that just came about that needs benches and stuff made. So I'd say performance, probably a B. We were in the hunt to win at Vegas, in the hunt to win at Arizona. But I really see potential with our crew guys, with Eric, with the equipment that we have. I think it's almost kind of a fresh start for everyone. I feel like, there's no egos. It's all of our first times working together. I really like the direction we're going in.
Talk to me and give me just a little bit of a comparison. You knew Eric Prutzman as a 7, 8, 9-year-old kid, mountain tires for Donnie Schatz and Ricky Warner, to now you've known him away from that on the non-business side of it. Now you're working with Eric as basically a teammate, and he's the heart of the team. Tell me about the two different relationships and how they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, I think anyone that knows Eric knows he's quiet, right? He's not the center of attention at the bar, at wherever. He's just not that guy. And, didn't keep super close in touch with Eric when he was at the 49 car. Obviously, always said hi, would have a beer with him, whatever. And to work with him now, like, I feel like a Ricky Warner or an Eric Pressman, a guy like that you put on such a high pedestal. I've been blown away by the communication he's had, getting to the racetrack, or even the phone calls during the week of, hey, did you watch qualifying, or did you watch this lap of your heat race? And I guess I wouldn't expect anything different from a guy that's had that much success. Of, hey, the car looked like this, or, spending a week at the shop or 2 weeks at the shop for him is not good for the competition, because, he's working every day to try and make his stuff faster. And just kind of the stuff he lays out to me during the week of, it's hard, right? Like him being in Charlotte, me being in Des Moines, but I think it's only as hard as you make it. If you have kind of that barrier and don't get to talk as much as you want to, it's only your own fault, because you can call and text and communicate any way you want nowadays. So I just think that, like I said, the stuff before the races where it's, hey, I have these bars, these shocks, this motor, because of this, let's go do it, is very refreshing. And just to have a guy with that much experience on your team is awesome.
Tell me just a little bit about your other crew guys, because I am not familiar with them. I met one of them when you guys were at Talladega, but I forgot his name.
Yep. So Cole, he's a year younger than me. He's our car chief. He's from Nebraska. He worked for Brad Sweet for half a year last year. Awesome kid, young, energetic. He's pretty much mini Eric. I feel like whatever he just follows him around. And I know Eric, if Eric trusts him, he worked with Eric last year on Ryan Newton's car, then I fully trust him. And to go through this first couple weeks of racing with no problems, we all expect to have no errors, nothing stupid happen. But like I said, when you're building a team from scratch, it's easy to kind of get in those situations. But Mike's my tire guy. He worked at Brock Fosses for a long time, so pretty good variety of guys. I think Mike is probably mid 50s. He's a Army veteran, and you got Cole, who's my age, and then Eric, who's been in racing forever. So three totally different personalities, that's for sure.
I want to ask you, it seems to be a hot topic, and I'm not saying that you're a specialist in this by any means. I know I'm not, but I try to stay up to date with the latest and greatest topic. And obviously, everybody knows that Anthony got injured again last week out at the Grove, and we're all thinking about him again for sure. But I stay active on a little bit of social media just for what I have here, and the back injuries seems to be a hot topic of the week. Just like I can't remember what the other one was earlier, but they kind of come in groves. And I just think back to Tyler getting hurt at Eldora with a back injury and twice, and now Anthony twice. Any thoughts on what you think's going on there, or how do you prepare yourself the best to have the safest situation you can in your race car?
Man, I don't know. I mean, I've looked closer at the XC mounts than I have the Chasm mounts. Um, I do like the XC mounts. I can't be any higher in the car, and it moves you up an inch. So it would be a situation where you're cutting out bars, which is not a big deal. But it's hard because I know Macri broke his back last year at Eldora. I don't know if he had the Chasm in then or not. I'm assuming he did. But Tyler's impact was up. So when he went cage first in the wall, his back was compressed upward. So, you know, I think at the end of the day, these cars are very dangerous. That's why sprint car drivers get paid a good amount of money to go race them. Not saying we couldn't, make things safer, not saying we shouldn't make things safer, but you know, we go to some racetracks that are not super safe. And even I mean, Eldora is an extremely safe racetrack with a catch fence, but you're going fast, you're riding against the wall. Um, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. All my stuff right now is mounted standard. There's no XC, no Chasm. You know, Nothing has really shown me it is, more beneficial than just standard mounting systems. I feel like I'm small enough where my butt is far enough away from the torque tube where it'll crush the seat bar before it crushes my seat, which I think is a good thing. I have a seat insert. I run ratchet belts. I just, you know, I don't say I don't know enough about it. I haven't seen enough testing behind it, and I don't know if we'll ever see enough testing behind it. One thing I will kind of finish this with, I do feel like if your seat moves, your belt probably should be mounted to your seat, not to the frame. Obviously NASCAR, a whole different world, but they run all belt seats and they have way more room. They have way more mounting points in their seats. I think they have 8 or 9 mounting points in their seats to their frames. But the belts are mounted to the seat. So, if your seat's moving a half inch or an inch and your belts are not moving, your belts are going to come loose. So, like I said, I don't know. It's hard though, because a guy like Dominic that's bigger than me, there might not be room to mount your belts to your seat with the A frame and the hip rails and stuff. With me, there would be, because there is room between the seat and the hip rails. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know. I haven't seen pictures of Macri's car. I've seen Tyler's car in person. I know that Tyler added an inch to the bottom of his seat for another inch of padding under his insert, which I think is a good thing. But then you get into the point of, okay, do I have enough headroom over the cage? Do I need to build a taller cage car? So, I don't know. I think I'm probably the right height for a sprint car driver, 5'9", not being 6'2" or 6'3", you get jammed up in there. But I feel like I take every safety precaution possible with belts, helmets, fire suits, seats, all that stuff to try and be safe.
Absolutely. So when do you guys get back to racing with High Limit, Gio? Tell me your upcoming schedule, where we're going to see it. I know that you guys do have that weekend off for that Knoxville weekend there, but what else do you guys have going?
Yep. So next weekend we go Friday Lakeside, Saturday Lucas Oil Speedway in Wheatland, Tuesday's the Eagle Show, midweek show, and then that Friday Saturday is Knoxville.
Yeah,
Weather
and that
depending,
Eagle
I
show
hope, so.
is that moved up a little bit earlier than it was last year? Does it seem like?
So I think there was two. There's two this year. I know. I think there was only one last year. I think this one's new. There was normally one before the June Outlaw show. Now there's one before the April Outlaw show and the June Outlaw show.
Have you turned a lot of laps at Eagle?
I think I've only raced the high limit shows. I ran one in 23, or yeah, 23, 24, and 25 were the last only times I've been there. It's a badass little joint though.
That's what I was going to say. Everybody, make sure that's a Tuesday night. Tune into
Yes,
Flow and watch that because Eagle is one of my top 5 racetracks in the country.
it is
Great
awesome.
racing. The people out there are passionate about the sport. I know they're going to pack that place too, so that'll be a fun one too.
Yep, especially I-80 being gone. I think Eagle's about the only wing sprint car track they have left out there.
Yeah. All right. So, Gio, people probably don't know this one. I'm lucky enough to know this. Both you and your brother have dogs. And you didn't go about getting them just, hey, let's go down to the Humane Society or let's get online and look for a dog. There have been unique ways that you've come across your dogs, and I want you to tell me your story. First, give us the name and tell us how you acquired your four-legged feline friend.
Yeah, so Maggie's my dog. So my girlfriend kind of always said she wanted a dog, and it was our first year on the Outlaw tour, and just kind of how are we gonna have a dog? We travel all the time. A lot of dogs don't like car rides. Dogs thrive off of, repetition. Thrive off of a schedule. I feel like, and with racing, there is no schedule with hotels and where you're staying and time frames and stuff. And we had rained out. I think we raced Magnolia, Mississippi on Saturday. We were driving to Devil's Bowl the weekend after. It had like damn near tornado the night before. Buildings, fences were blown down. There was a lot of damage in Columbus, Mississippi, where we stayed. Next morning, we get up and drive to Devil's Bowl. And around Jackson, Mississippi, my girlfriend had to go to the bathroom. So we get off at the truck stop, and there's a little black lab walking across the overpass right in front of a truck. A truck's going real slow, obviously waiting for her to peel off out of the way in the overpass. And, we see a bunch of dogs. You see stray dogs all over the place, but this was a young dog. So, obviously the Dominic in me was like, oh my God, I should probably pick this thing up. So go to the truck stop. I said, hey, let's go to the bathroom. Let's get diesel. If the dog's still there when we pull out, we'll pick it up. So pull out of the truck stop. She's sitting kind of in this little gravel lot by the on ramp. So I pull off in the gravel lot, kneel down, and she bolts right to us, jumps in my arms. I pick her up, give her to my girlfriend, put her in the truck. It's a Sunday, so nothing's open. So she starts looking up, 24-hour vets and stuff to get her wanted and see if she's a lost dog. Found a place down the road a little bit. They wanted her. She had no collar on. She was filthy, had mud all over her. Had like scabs under her arms and a scab on her back. Like she'd been out for a while or had rubbed herself raw with a rope or something. They wanted her and said, hey, if you want her, she's yours. If not, drop her off at a pound on Monday. And, my girlfriend wanted to name her as soon as we picked her up. I was like, hey, don't name this thing yet. She might not be our dog. Don't get connected to this thing because we might have to give her away to her actual owner. And then when we figured out she was our dog, or we could take her if we wanted to, Magnolia, that was kind of how it came about with her name. Yep.
And everybody's going to ask, so let's just eliminate all the comments. Did you have them check for a chip?
Yes. Yep. She got wanded, no chip, no collar. The guy at the vet said, hey, if you're from around here, post her on Facebook, see if she's a lost dog. I'm like, well, none of my friends live in Columbus, Mississippi. So there's going to be no chance anyone claims her. And they said there's no chip. So if you want her, she's yours. If not, drop her off at the pound on Monday. And if anyone knows, once you pick up a puppy and put her in your truck, there's not much giving her back, I don't think.
Yeah. And the girlfriend was happy that way too then, huh?
Yes, there was a long conversation of what the hell are we going to do now because we have a dog in the truck and we have to bring her to the races now. And our first race was Devil's Bowl, which luckily the Hampton Inn we were out allowed dogs. She slept the entire 8-hour drive to Texas. Let her out, went to the bathroom, and trying to figure out this thing's potty trained, what she knows, can she sit, can she stay, can she do whatever, and brought her to the room. She ate her food and shit on the floor of the hotel room in about 30 seconds. So. Potty training was tough, especially going from hotel to hotel, but she does really good now.
So she travels with you guys every week then too, still?
Every race. Yep, she goes to every race.
And that's not just a little puppy you're hauling around. It's a black lab?
No, yeah, so she's a lab pit bull mix. So she's 60-ish pounds. But the noise and all this stuff that I was worried about her being afraid of. When we had her at Devil's Bowl, we fired the car in the parking lot and she sat 10 feet from it, looked at it, and laid down. So very lucky that she travels as well as she does, and I think she does better off a leash than she does on a leash. So very fortunate to have a dog as well behaved as her.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome stuff. Sheldon, I said, or not Sheldon. Jeez,
wrong 18 driver.
I'll, I'll edit that out anyway because it's not going to work.
Leave it. That's funny. That's
Oh,
good.
all right. We'll leave
If
it in
anyone
just so
watches
everybody
it
can
that
say, yeah,
far,
Landman's
deserve
not
to hear it.
perfect. Wrong 18 card, Gio said.
It's funny.
Gio, I asked you for 45 minutes and it says an hour and 5 minutes on my deal. So, like I tell everybody, I appreciate you coming on and just opening up about stuff away from the racetrack. We get to talk about how you got to where you are today and what's going on. And I thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. We'll see you soon. All right, everybody. So that is Giovanni Scelzi. And I sure appreciate Gio taking a little bit of time out of his busy schedule to come on the show. Gio's a tough one to get a hold of. So, Gio, I appreciate you doing that. If anyone is wondering, I am going to be at the Federated Auto Parts at I-55 Speedway in Peabody, Missouri this weekend. Both nights. Hopefully the weather gets a little bit better than what we're seeing right now. Friday looks pretty questionable. Saturday, I think we're going to be okay, though. So if you're in the area, swing by. If you happen to see me, you know where to find me at the 15 car, more than likely. Swing by, give me a shout. I always love to see all the people that pay attention to what we're doing over here on Hot Lappin' with Landman. If you get a second, give me a follow, give me a like, give me a shout out of any way you can. Tell your friends about me. I'd love to have more followers. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. We will see you next time.